Hello, friends of the Stories That Leave a Mark channel. Welcome everyone. Today's story will surprise you, so stay with me until the end of this video. The night the stone refused to sleep. There are stories that slip through the cracks of science, whispers that even the most advanced instruments refuse to answer. There is a village hidden behind mountains of quartz and old forests where the sun sets earlier than it should. In this village, people talk about a stone that does not accept stillness after midnight. It is shaped like a river pebble, smooth on one side, rugged on the other, and colder than ice even in summer. The villagers claim that when the clock reaches a very specific moment between night and dawn, the stone starts to turn by itself, as if remembering something. What makes this phenomena so strange is that it does not turn randomly. It moves in a rhythm that resembles communication, a message carved in motion rather than sound. The stone was discovered by a shepherd who used to guide his animals through the valley. One evening he saw a faint pulse of blue light coming from a fissure in the ground. When he touched the object inside, it did not emit heat or vibration. It just remained cold and still. Yet, that same night, he heard a soft, grinding sound coming from his table. At first, he thought it was the wood cracking because of humidity. But when he entered the room, the stone was in a different position, slightly tilted, as if someone had nudged it. He placed it back. Minutes later, the sound returned, and the stone had moved again. The shepherd panicked, wrapped it in thick cloth, and hid it inside a wooden chest. But even through layers of wood and cloth, he could hear it shifting every night, like a creature trapped in a cage. Researchers from the nearest city dismissed the story. They claimed the shepherd suffered from stress or hallucinations. Yet when they visited the valley and placed the stone on a metal table under controlled conditions, the same thing happened. Right at the moment when the valley temperature drops to its coldest point and the wind stops completely, the stone begins to rotate in small, calculated increments. Cameras filmed it from different angles. Microphones recorded the sound of movement. But what unsettled the researchers was the pattern. It was not chaotic. The movement followed a sequence that repeated every few nights, as if the stone were calibrating itself to something invisible. Scientists brought it to a laboratory far from the valley. At first, the stone remained still. They thought the entire phenomenon depended on the environment of the valley. But at 3:42 in the morning, the stone finally responded. The cold in the room increased without explanation. Metal instruments began to gather tiny droplets of frost, and then it moved, just like in the valley. A slow, deliberate rotation, an intelligent pivot, a pause that felt like attention. It frightened the technicians so much that some refused to stay in the building overnight. They ran dozens of tests: thermal imaging, magnetic resonance, acoustic rereading of environmental frequencies. But every attempt failed to reveal a cause. What truly disturbed them was that the stone produced no measurable energy. It did not emit radiation or magnetic fields or electrical pulses. It did not absorb heat. It did not respond to direct stimulation. It simply moved without any detectable force acting on it, as if the rules of physics avoided it deliberately. One night, a researcher decided to watch it alone. He sat quietly, refusing to blink. When the moment arrived, he saw something no camera had captured. The air around the stone shimmered like heat waves. Even though the temperature was freezing, he felt pressure around his head. Not painful, but heavy, like someone was trying to place a thought. Inside his mind, the stone rotated slightly toward him and stopped. In that frozen silence, he heard a faint echo that did not come from the air but from inside his skull. It whispered a sequence of tones that felt familiar, even though he had never heard anything like them. Afterward, He could not sleep for 2 days. He resigned from the research team and warned them that the stone was not moving out of randomness. It was observing. Villagers have a legend that the valley was once home to visitors who did not arrive by walking. They say the stone is not a relic, but a reminder, a form of memory that activates when darkness reaches its deepest point. Elders believe the stone is waiting for someone who understands its rotation. Others think it is a warning that something is returning. A geologist once took thermal snapshots of the valley at night and noticed an anomaly beneath the ground. A large circular formation lies deep under the earth, like a buried machine. The stone's movement seems to sync with vibrations coming from that formation. It is as if the stone is responding to an ancient engine that has not fully awakened. The shepherd no longer speaks to strangers, but those who know him say he dreams every night of lights rising from beneath the valley. He hears the stone's grinding sound even when he is far from it, and he repeats the same sentence whenever someone asks him what he thinks the stone wants. He says it is not turning to scare anyone. It is turning because it remembers something that the earth has forgotten. The villagers have tried burying it, sealing it, locking it inside iron boxers. It keeps moving. Some nights, it only turns a fraction of a millimeter. Other nights, it rotates enough to face a completely different direction. What scientists do not understand is that the stone never moves when watched closely. It moves only when the observer blinks or looks away. Not because it needs secrecy, but because it reacts to perception itself. Researchers describe it as an object that understands awareness, as if the stone does not want to be measured but wants to measure those who measure it. One hypothesis suggests the stone is a sensor from a forgotten civilization designed to activate under specific atmospheric conditions. Another theory claims it is an object that fell from space millions of years ago, carrying a dormant mechanism that awakens only when aligned with the Earth's axial tilt at certain times of year. But these theories cannot explain the patterns carved inside it, microscopic channels arranged like circuitry, despite the stone being older than human tools. The most frightening event occurred when a team left the stone inside a sealed chamber with no light or airflow. When they returned the next morning, the stone was spinning rapidly without touching the walls. It floated a few centimeters off the ground and rotated in perfect silence. The moment the door opened, the stone fell, as if pretending to be inert again. The footage showed only static. The cameras recorded nothing but darkness, as if the stone itself erased the evidence. People who have stood near it claim they feel time passing differently, as if moments stretch and compress. Sometimes you blink and minutes vanish. Other times you stare and the second hand on your watch barely moves. The stone seems to distort the perception of duration while remaining obedient to its own sense of time. One researcher believes the stone is not trying to communicate with humans at all. He says it could be responding to something beneath the valley, something dormant, a pulse, a vibration, a frequency not built by nature, a device that once powered something immense. He believes the stone is a key and its rotation is an attempt to match a lock buried deep under the earth. And the night it finally completes the rotation sequence will be the night that key turns. The shepherd has grown old now, but he still listens every night. He says the stone is turning faster each year. He says that one night soon, it will not stop at all. And when that night comes, the valley will not sleep, neither will the world. There is a peculiar rule in the world of physical objects. Every solid thing, no matter how small or large, casts a shadow when exposed to light. This is not just common sense, but an immutable law of optics. But the stone that turns by itself violates this rule. When light touches it, something else appears. Something that should not exist. It casts a shadow, but not of its own shape. And no matter the angle of light, the shadow leans toward the same direction every time, pointing to a location that does not correlate with the sun's position or any artificial light source. The shadow is elongated, sharp-edged, and taller than a human, even though the stone itself fits in one hand. When scientists place a white background behind it, the shadow becomes more defined. But what horrifies them is that the shadow appears even in total darkness, when all lights are switched off. When the room is scanned and confirmed to be pitch black, the shadow projects itself faintly on the ground like a negative of something that is not present in the room. It is as if the stone remembers a light that does not exist here and casts a shadow from it. The shadow also moves, not at the same time as the stone, but independently. Sometimes it shifts slightly to the side, though the stone remains perfectly still. Sometimes the shadow stretches thin like a piece of fabric pulled by invisible hands. People who have seen it swear that the shadow blinks, it pulses, it contracts, it breathes. No camera has ever captured these movements clearly. The footage always loses frames or becomes corrupted the moment the shadow shifts. Observers describe it as looking at the outline of a body that is not human. Long limbs, a distorted head, angles that violate anatomy, a silhouette of something that walks in a world adjacent to ours. Researchers attempted to scan the stone using layered spectrography. The devices malfunctioned. They tried analyzing the light around the shadow. The numbers returned impossible values like negative luminosity. They attempted to trace the direction where the shadow pointed. Always the same, a fixed coordinate dot within the forest behind a valley. When they followed that direction during the day, they found nothing unusual. But at night, their compasses spun. GPS devices failed. Animals refused to enter the area, and their flashlights dimmed inexplicably, as if the forest absorbed the beam. One night, a brave or foolish intern placed the stone on the ground near the forest and shined a powerful lamp directly on it. The shadow expanded across the grass and pointed toward an old tree with the trunk split into 3 branches. And then something unprecedented happened. The shadow began to climb the tree independent of the stone's position. It scaled the bark like a creature made of ink. When the shadow reached the top, the tree cracked with a sound like bones breaking. The researchers ran, terrified. But when they returned the next morning, the tree was untouched. No cracks, no signs of damage, as if the event took place in a layer of reality that left no physical trace. Some believe the shadow is not a projection, but a memory of the stone's original environment. They theorize the stone once belonged to a world with different laws of light and gravity. In that world, the shadow might have been its natural partner, or even a living entity attached to it. When the stone arrived in our dimension, the shadow remained separate, unable to merge, but unable to leave. A lingering presence, bound to an object that does not fully belong here. One physicist proposed that the shadow might be a dimensional tear, and that its shape is not a silhouette, but a window revealing something behind the fabric of space. If that is true, then the form within the shadow is not a reflection, but an observer looking back. Perhaps the stone is not watching us. Perhaps something behind the stone is. Villagers refuse to be near it now. They say the shadow moves when no one looks. They say sometimes it stands upright like a giant, and sometimes it crawls along the earth like smoke with limbs. A hunter once claimed he saw the shadow climbing across the ceiling of a barn. Upside down, when he turned on the lantern, the shadow snapped back under the stone as if surprised. The strangest phenomenon occurs when the stone rotates at night. The shadow changes too. It bends, twists, aligns with the stone's movement. It behaves like a creature, adjusting itself to a shifting anchor. The more the stone turns, the more the shadow stretches, as if something is trying to push through. The night, the stone spun faster than usual. Every dog in the valley howled at the same instant. The shadow rose taller than the barn beside it and remained frozen for several seconds. People swear they saw the silhouette raise its head as if sniffing the air. Some researchers abandoned the project after that night. They said they felt something standing behind them, though no one was there. They said the stone makes the space around it wrong, as if the world becomes thinner, fragile, stretched like old paper. The forest where this shadow points remains unwelcoming. No birds sing there. The temperature drops by several degrees. Even in summer, trees lean unnaturally, as if bowing to something buried beneath them. The villagers call that part of the forest the vein. They say the shadow points to a location where an ancient event occurred long before humans arrived. Something fell there, or something was sealed there. The stone may be trying to awaken it or warn us about it. One investigator believes the shadow is a mopping motion. Every twist of the stone adjusts the angle of the shadow slightly. Over months, the shadow has shifted by centimeters, tracking something that moves underground. Not a creature perhaps, but a structure, a shape rising, a sleeper. The most terrifying moment came when a drone equipped with thermal sensors flew over the vein at night. The thermal camera captured a massive heat signature shaped vaguely like the shadow, 20 meters long, standing up. But when the researchers reviewed the footage an hour later, the recording had erased itself, leaving only static. The shadow under the stone is not a shadow. It is a reminder of something that watches even in total darkness. Something waiting for the night when the stone's rotation aligns perfectly and the silhouette will no longer be flat but three-dimensional. And when that moment arrives, the shadow will no longer be beneath. The stone